one of the great Japanese philosophers as well, and they teach it in teach his writings in most philosophy schools in the United States as well. I know they teach it at Cal Poly as well in the philosophy department. So in 1241, Dogen gave Tokudo to one of his students, and Tokudo is priest ordination. So this talk, this fascicle from the Shobogenzo, is based on the talk that he gave that day in honor of this student's ordination as a priest. He had nearly 20 years before that, he had been, well, even longer than that. Dogen started out as a Tendai priest in Japan, which was the main school of Buddhism at that time. And he was unsatisfied with what he was learning. He felt that there was something more. And so he went to China and he stayed there for a period of time. And then he came back to Japan and he brought what in China was Chan Buddhism to Japan, and where it became Zen Buddhism. And so at this point, Tendai was still the main school in Japan at this point when he gave this talk. And people were beginning to hear of Dogen's teachings, and many students were coming to work with him. And many of those students came from the Tendai school. And in fact, this particular student, Itatsu, that was ordained on this day, had been a fairly high-ranking member of the Tendai school and had been studying for many years. But he, like Dogen, was dissatisfied with what he had learned, or maybe not dissatisfied, but felt there was more. And so he had come to work with Dogen. And he became ordained then in the Zen school, in the Soto school. So at this time, actually in the Tendai school, the Lotus Sutra was considered the central teaching. And the Lotus Sutra was written, I think, about 50 to 150 CE, current era. And took, over a period of time, was assembled and put together, and it was considered a major Mahayana text, and it was central to the Tendai school. It also was very, very important in the Zen school as well. So this particular commentary, this particular talk that he gave, is Dogen's commentary on the Lotus Sutra, and in it, he talks about what he considers to be the most important points of the Lotus Sutra. And there were certain points that were considered by others to be the major points, but for Dogen, it was something a little different. And so he's telling this student about what, and his other students as well, about what he thinks is the most important teaching of the Lotus Sutra. So for him, the most important teaching was that the Dharma, or teaching, is always and forever available in this world, regardless of whether there's a Buddha present. So, and if any of you have read the Lotus Sutra, there are many, many different Buddhas come forth, and of course, the Shakyamuni Buddha is the Buddha of this particular realm. And so, in Indian, the Lotus Sutra was written in India, and many Indian sutras really talk about many beings and many worlds and many kalpas and eons of existence, and the Lotus Sutra was not different in that. But the Lotus Sutra had one of its main teachings that people considered its main teaching was that the Buddha had never really died, that he was a being that his teaching would continue to exist even beyond death. that he continued in that way. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted onto something that I didn't really mean to talk about. So this particular talk, Dogen was actually inspired by a phrase that was written, that Huineng, who was a 6th Chinese ancestor, is included in the Platform Sutra, which is supposedly the writings of Huineng, of the 6th patriarch. And in it, he says, when your mind is deluded, you are turned by Dharma blossoms. When your mind is enlightened, you turn Dharma blossoms. So Dogen says that the Dharma is always flowering, arising and flowering. This flowering is always and continuously present, always available to our practice. This is the Buddha of the Lotus Sutra. And it is our very practice which causes this Buddha to appear. So he really is emphasizing our kind of the fact that our lives, our practice is entwined with the teaching coming forward and actually causes this teaching to come forward. For Dogen, the world of the Lotus Sutra and the truth of reality is a living, flowering universe, pulsating, vast, insubstantial, and constantly blossoming. This is Dharma blossoms turning. The arising on each moment of that which we experience as this right now. This which is our life and our experience of our life. Each moment a new blossom, arising, blossoming, fading away. Each moment, each aspect, a Dharma blossom turning. And I have to say, one of the things, a lot of people, when they read Dogen, they have a difficult time with him because he doesn't talk, it doesn't always logical progression of his thinking. And he was very highly trained as a poet. And so much of his writing is poetic. And so when he talks about Dharma blossoms, one of the things when I first heard this part of this writing of his, it moved me, but I didn't really know what it was about. And I think that that's really important. I think that it's really important that we listen to this as imagery that comes to us on another level, that it's not necessarily completely logical, or that we can't explain it logically, maybe. So so this is the eternal, omnipresent life force of the universe. This is the Buddha of the Lotus Sutra. This is the great compassion of the universe, which embraces us in the continual rising, opening, and fading of Dharma blossoms. This is the Lotus Sutra of the Wondrous Dharma. And the Lotus Sutra of the Wondrous Dharma, that is the whole name of the Lotus Sutra. So it in itself is talking about blossoms. And this is Dharma blossoms turning. This is our world constantly emerging, renewing on each moment. This is our being turned by Dharma blossoms. So all of us have moments of enlightenment, moments when this sense of wonder at the very fact of this life fills us and is completely and thoroughly enough for us. Moments when it feels like there is no separation between us and what is. Moments when we completely accept this, just this, as our life. This is U-turn Dharma blossoms. But it is not always like this, and maybe not even often like this. Most of our lives, we are mired in delusion, feeling a separateness between what we consider as our inside and what is outside. There are times when we feel like events and situations are turning us, lost in this delusion of separateness, seeing the world as outside of ourselves. This is you are turned by Dharma blossoms. But in reality, we are not separate from the world as it emerges. Recently, a friend sent me a quote from another great modern Zen master, Neil deGrasse Tyson. as some of you may have heard of. He says, you know what else is beautiful? That the atoms and molecules in your body are traceable to the crucible in the center of a star that manufactured these elements over its lifetime, went unstable on death, exploding its enriched guts across the galaxies, scattering it into gas clouds that would ultimately collapse and make a star, and have the right ingredients to make planets and people. And that means that we are all part of this universe. And not only that, the universe is in us. So physically, just physically, we are with the entire universe. We are entwined with it, with each and every sensation and each and every experience that we have, and with each other, and inextricably connected. Dogen says, there is neither a moment nor a thing that is apart from life. There is neither an object nor a mind that is apart from life. Life is like riding in a boat. You raise the sails and you steer. Although you maneuver the sail and the pole, the boat gives you a ride. And without the boat, you couldn't ride. But you ride in the boat, and your riding makes the boat what it is. Thus you make life what it is. You make life your life. So we are inextricably entwined with what we experience, not separate. Our experience, delusions and all, is the universe, is reality. So Dogen quotes Huineng as saying, know that all things are treasures that belong to you. Receive and make use of them. So it's very easy to think that it's better to be enlightened, turning Dharma blossoms, than to be deluded, being turned by Dharma blossoms. I don't know, it sounds good to me, right? Sounds like it'd be nicer to do that. But Dogen tells us, one great Buddha vehicle and the Dharma blossoms turning and being turned are in reality one great vehicle, one great matter. There are bits and pieces of one vehicle. These are bits and pieces of one vehicle alone. These thus do not resent delusion. Each unfolding of the teaching, each entering into enlightenment is Dharma blossoms turning. Both our enlightened self and our deluded self are part of the great turning of Dharma blossoms. When you fully experience this, it is Dharma blossoms turning Dharma blossoms. So in Zen, we end up talking a lot about the most mundane activities, such as washing the dishes or sweeping the floor, as activities that are opportunities for practice. And we talk about them in terms of mindfulness, of just washing, just sweeping when we're doing these activities. But how do we practice with death or illness or loss? It seems like a problem of great magnitude, a different problem of great magnitude. In the universe which Dogen speaks of, Dharma blossoms are all of these things, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the seemingly small and the seemingly huge. Thus, realization is reality right now. Even shocks, doubts, fears, and frights are none other than reality right now. Even when you sit in the world of phenomena, it is not broad. Even when you sit in a speck of dust, it is not narrow. If you are not fully present, you do not fully sit. If you are fully present, you are free of how large or narrow it is where you are. Thus you have fully experienced the essential unfolding of Dharma blossoms. So in case 46 of the Gateless Gate, which is a collection of koans, of Zen koans, put together by Muman, Master Sakiso said, how will you step forward from the top of a 100-foot pole? In our life, how will we step forward when there is death? How will we step forward when there is illness or loss or a mistake? And I don't know about you, but my last few years have been full of this stuff. And most of the people I know, I thought of listing all the things that have happened in my life, and I thought, well, you guys know, you're going through the same stuff, that we have people that are dying, we have people that are sick, we ourselves are sick, we are getting older. All these things are happening. We have children who have problems, everything, that moves us. So asking this question, how will you move forward then? How do you practice then? It's one thing to practice mindfulness when we're meditating or doing walking meditation or smelling a flower, but how do we do it when the whole world seems to maybe be falling apart for us? Master Sikiso says, you must step forward from the top of the pole and manifest your whole body throughout the world in 10 directions. Manifesting your whole body is turning Dharma blossoms. So we plunge into each occurrence of our lives, holding nothing back, allowing Dharma blossoms to embrace us, whether they're what we might consider good Dharma blossoms or difficult Dharma blossoms. We allow them to embrace us, to entwine us, regardless of our feelings toward them. We take each circumstance and completely engage it, knowing that this is life, this is Dharma blossoms. And by doing so, we also turn them. We don't get rid of our emotions or our delusions, but in our practice, we allow both to exist, our deluded mind and our enlightened sense of practice. Again, Dogen says, when the Dharma blossoms fully turn you, you're empowered to turn the Dharma blossoms. While the original turning never stops, you return to turn the Dharma blossoms. While the donkey, which is symbolic of delusion, has not left, the horse, which is symbolic of enlightenment, has arrived. I love that we can have both. This is the single great matter manifesting right here and now. So when we fully accept the events of our life and allow them to embrace us, to turn us, this is practice. This is truly when we are practicing. And this practice allows us to see that we ourselves are Dharma blossoms, arising, blossoming, fading on each moment. And by our practice, we in turn are turning Dharma blossoms. We are Dharma blossoms turning Dharma blossoms. Dogen says, as Dharma blossoms have been active from eon to eon, from day to night, whether your body and mind are strong or weak, they are Dharma blossoms. Such blossoms are a rare treasure of radiant light, a practice place broad and vast, great and timeless. This is one of the things I love about Dogen. It's just he's poetically so beautiful, the way he talks about our life. And so we live in this wondrous blossoming of each moment after moment, awareness upon awareness, being turned by Dharma blossoms and turning Dharma blossoms, sometimes aware of it, sometimes not even thinking about it. So let me end. I always think I'm going to talk too long, and I always talk really short. So that's probably good, right? Because everybody gets tired after somebody talks too long. But anyway, so let me end. Actually, before I end, I'm just going to read a poem. I don't even know if it fits in this talk. I just like it, so I'm going to read it. So, although the wind blows terribly here, the moonlight also leaks between the roof planks of this ruined house. And this is by a woman poet, Azumi Shikubu, of the 10th century. So, now let me end as Dogen ended his talk. When your mind is deluded, you are turned by Dharma blossoms. When your mind is enlightened, you turn Dharma blossoms. When you thoroughly experience this, it is Dharma blossoms turning Dharma blossoms. And then he says, let me repeat. When your mind is deluded, you are turned by Dharma blossoms. When your mind is enlightened, you turn Dharma blossoms. When you thoroughly experience this, it is Dharma blossoms turning Dharma blossoms. To honor and dedicate yourself to this teaching is no other than Dharma blossoms turning Dharma blossoms. So, I hope that I offered something that you could relate to. And if you would like to say something or have any questions.
Thank you. This was one. Oh, how about you? I love Dogen too, and I was wondering if you could read that short poem again.
Oh, the short poem, yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it?
But yes, but my question is, so often, and I read recently the biography of Li Po, you know, the Chinese poet, like
Yes.
17th century or something really old century. But, he wrote a lot of poems, and they always had an element of nature in them, trees.
Yes.
And I was wondering, that happens so often that I think I associate Zen with nature.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, but please read the poem again.
Yeah, let me read the poem first.
Hear.
Yeah. Although the wind blows terribly here, the moonlight also leaks between the roof planks of this ruined house. You know, I know more about the art than I do about the poetry. But one of the things in Chinese and in Japanese art, the emphasis is on human life as being in harmony with nature, rather than being in control of nature. And that's a big difference between Western and Eastern. So in ink paintings and things, you know, you'll have this vast landscape and a little hut with a person, you know, that maybe you almost miss. And that's really expressing this sense of human life as being part of this vast nature. And I think it's the same with poetry, you know. I mean, that's my assumption. Does anybody else know more about this, about poetry specifically? Yeah.
Maybe I'm trying too hard to contribute, but I was at the Garden Gallery yesterday in Morro Bay, and I was looking at the bonsai trees, the little juniper trees, and in every little bonsai container, there was, no matter how small, there was a little tiny figure somewhere
Really?
in it that was sitting on a stump or sitting on a tree,
Yeah.
but man was in there, but always very tiny,
Yeah.
with the tree, you know, being big and beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that's another example of it. And of course, you know, when Buddhism came to China, Taoism was very important in China at that time. And Taoism really emphasizes harmony with nature. And so a lot of that was incorporated into Chan and Zen as well, very, very much so. Very deep in their culture. Anybody on Zoom have a question or a thought? Okay.
I was just thinking about that, you know, the Dharma blossom turning me versus me turning. And I was trying to see if I could link that in any way to karma. Is there any link?
To karma. Karma is a very controversial subject, isn't it? I think cause and effect is an easier term in some way. I don't know if I can link it to that. I think that definitely, you know, this is just my thinking. That definitely the way we react, because really when talking about Dharma blossoms, we're talking about things that occur, experiences, either feelings that we have, who we are at the moment that rises and disappears. So how we react to that and how we handle that creates karma, creates cause and effect. And so that's why, you know, one of the things they say, you know, talk about in Zen a lot is that being enlightened is not really the point in some way, or getting to the point where you have kensho. They talk in Japanese about kensho, that experience of, awakening. But then the hard work starts. The hard work is, how do you practice? How do you live an ethical, effective life? And there's great emphasis on that in all of Buddhism. And so in some way, I guess I am connecting it to Dharma blossoms. These things occur, and really what Dogen's talking about is that we're entwined with them, that we can turn them, and how we react to them is how we turn them, and that ethical behavior that is talked about in the Eightfold Path, that's talked about in the precepts, is maybe the essence, is maybe the most important thing about practice in some way. We all like this idea of, someday maybe I'll have such insight that the world will always be beautiful, but probably not, probably not. Probably things will fall apart again. I want to say oyubei, not as a Zen term, but oyubei. So I think so you can, I think, relate karma to this in some way. I always think the reason I said karma is a very controversial thing is that it's not so easy as, if you do this, that's going to happen to you. It's not that simple. I have to tell a story. I have a friend. She's actually a Buddhist practitioner, but she's in a particular group where they believe in karma, just absolutely, like if your child is born without a leg, it's their karma, something they did in a past life. And I just, I'm sorry, this is me. I have a hard time with that. It's not that simple. I think the poor child, is not the way I believe. So, but let's not get distracted too much by karma. Right?
I had some thoughts about the poem itself that you read, about the cold winds blowing through, and so that's a Dharma blossom.
Yes.
And then if I grasp onto my discomfort with that cold wind, I get to suffer the whole night being cold.
Yeah.
But if I keep my awareness open, then I get to see the moon coming through, and that's another Dharma blossom.
Right.
And then I have a whole different experience, and that's karmic.
Yes.
So that seems to me to really not only be a very pertinent poem to the Dharma blossoms, but also to talk about how the conditions, how I respond to conditions sets up the next condition.
Yeah. And somebody who sent this to me, and I couldn't quite tell if they had written part of this. There was a commentary by Jane Hirschfield too. Do you know her? She's a poet. But then I think the main writing was this person I know at Zen Center, who was writing about it and was talking about how you cannot close up your house. You have to let things come in order to get both the beauty and you get the difficulty too, but you get the beauty. And that's what this poem was about. Pardon? You can't hear me? Okay, because I leaned back too much. It's talking about the fact that you can't close up your house. That if you close up your house against the cold winds, you don't get the moonlight. That you need to open and let people in and life in. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have something?
I do, on Zoom.
Oh, on Zoom. Okay, sorry. Yes, go ahead, Rosemary.
I've got to jump in about karma. I'm sorry.
Okay.
In the Asanita Sutta, the Buddha clearly says that there are 4 things that if you try to speculate about them, you will make yourself crazy. He says, he calls it will cause you madness and vexation. And one of them is individual karma, yours or somebody else's.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that and quote it next time. Yeah.
I'd like to say another thing. I wanted to get back to nature in the poems, and I think too that one of the significance has to do with impermanence and how, because nature is just nothing if not cyclical. It's cyclical, you have the flower blooms, it dies, the seeds, plant, they're not seeds anymore, they're plant. There's always change, and it's like a river, just is always just moving. And so, and everything is permanent. And I think that the overshadowing of humans by nature, writ large, it just shows that we, it's like we don't dominate. That's clear.
Yeah.
We're not in control, and then the forces that we're just buffeted about by forces like the wind blowing the trees, and
Right.
so.
And I think we're finding that out, that
Yeah.
we may have thought we had control, but we're
Oh,
finding
yeah,
out
yeah.
that
True.
we don't. Yeah, I was thinking about that in terms of Mother's Day, actually, that I think, they say that young people are hesitating to have kids now. And I think it's I never thought of it when I was having my son, but it's a leap of faith to have a child, a leap of faith and a leap of trust in some way. And I think that's more difficult right now. Yeah. So, and speaking of nature, I mean, Dharma, the idea of blossoms or flowers are used in Buddhism in many different ways. It comes up a lot. Yeah.
About the lotus,
Lotus is
I mean,
really-
it is the Dharma. It is the Buddha,
Yeah.
the lotus,
Yeah.
and it is samsara and nirvana. It is that. And all of these images we have in the Tibetan ones that we have here, they're all in nature, these beautiful nature scenes.
And we say, let us exist in muddy water like the lotus.
Right.
And would we practice if there wasn't muddy water? Probably not.
No.
If we were just joyous all the time.
No
probably
mud,
we
no
wouldn't
lotus.
practice. Why bother, right?
I'm not sure if you're at the end, but I just want to say I do have one announcement for the people on Zoom, but I want you to keep going
Okay,
until we
okay. Let me just see, is there anyone else on Zoom who would like to participate, say something? Doesn't look like it. Anyone else? Okay, I also wanted to make one announcement. Someone came we sit, the Slow Zen circle sits here every Sunday morning. And somebody came 2 weeks ago and had no idea that we existed, basically. So it used to be Corey, a lot of you know Corey. He used to announce it all the time, but we haven't announced it for a long time. So we have a sitting here on Sunday mornings. Starts at 8:30, we have a service, and then we have 3 periods of Zazen unless we have a Dharma chat or a Dharma talk. So we have Dharma talks usually on the 3rd Sunday of each month. And we also have a Thursday night sitting as well at Crow Zen, which Mary is kind enough to let us use her space. That is starts at 6:45 for service. And then we sit 2 periods of Zazen. We have tea, cookies. We have someone who brings us delicious cookies every week. If you don't want to come for the practice, come for the cookies. Okay, and you had an announcement.
And I think that's on our website too, isn't it? The Zen Circle, or
I don't
not?
think it's not on the calendar. It's
Oh,
not on
okay.
the calendar. We started trying to send something out when we have a Dharma talk.
Oh, I
but,
see. Okay.
It's not on the calendar.
Well, I just wanted to say for the people on Zoom, if you were interested in this jacket and putting your name in the box that we have over here, I have these little cards. You can write your name, fold it up, and put it in the box. And if you are interested but you can't make it in, if you text me or email me rather, I will put your name in. All we ask is that the day of the drawing that you be present. Okay, otherwise we'll just go to the next name. And I think maybe it won't be next Sunday, but the one after. And anyway, so my name is Claudia. My email is claudia.royal, Royal, @gmail.com.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I always enjoy talking here. I appreciate it very much. Good to see you all.
Thank you, Deborah. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.